Lao Tzu teaches, water is soft but can penetrate stone. A strong person is one who knows how to let go. They told you strength is fire, that to survive in this world, you must harden, must burn, must clench your fists until your knuckles turn white. But what if they were wrong? What if the strongest force in this life was not flame but water? Lao Tzu once said, "Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water. Yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it." And today, perhaps more than ever, the world needs this truth. Not just to be heard, but to be felt. Deep in your bones, in your scars, in the weight you carry but never speak of. We live in a time where people confuse noise with clarity, resistance with resilience, and control with power. But water doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to fight. It just flows. And in its flow, it carves mountains, shapes landscapes, and survives every fall. That is the paradox of power. The more we grasp, the more we lose. The more we hold, the more we're held hostage. You've been taught to hold on, to never let go, to fight until your hands bleed and your soul cracks. But has it brought you peace? Or has it made you a prisoner of things that no longer serve you? Let me ask you, what have you been clinging to? A past that betrayed you? A version of yourself you've outgrown? A relationship that hurts more than it heals? Or maybe you're clinging to the idea that letting go makes you weak. But here's the truth the world won't tell you. It takes more strength to surrender than to resist. Because surrender is not defeat. It's wisdom. It's the strength to choose flow over friction, presence over pressure, and peace over pride. Lao Tzu didn't romanticize softness. He revered it, because he understood something that most people never will, that the river does not resent the rock. It simply moves around it, and in time it reshapes it. You see, the strongest people you'll ever meet are not the ones who fought every battle. They are the ones who learned which battles were worth it, and which ones were chains disguised as causes. They are the ones who once screamed in silence, who broke down behind closed doors, who bled quietly in the dark, and still woke up the next day and chose softness, chose to love again, trust again, walk away when staying meant self-destruction. Because real strength is not in never breaking, it's in breaking, and still choosing to bend, not snap. We think letting go means losing, but that's not true. Letting go means returning to yourself, to the truth beneath the noise, to the life waiting for you on the other side of attachment. So why are we so afraid to let go? Because we think pain proves our worth. Because we mistake endurance for identity. We confuse struggle with significance. But what if your struggle isn't proof of your strength, but a sign that it's time to stop fighting what no longer aligns with your soul? There is a storm in you, and there is a sea, and only one will carry you home. In the quiet spaces of our lives, we find ourselves knee-deep in expectations, in plans, in identities crafted to please, to perform, to protect. We are taught to conquer but not to understand, to chase but not to receive, to fight for control but not to trust in release. But the greatest transformations in life are not made through force. They happen in surrender. The seed must break to grow. The night must fall for the stars to be seen. The river must trust the bend to find its course. What if, today, you stopped clinging to the version of strength they sold you? The one that glorifies suffering, that equates silence with dignity, that tells you to tough it out, even when you're breaking? What if, instead, you softened, like water, not to be fragile, but to be formless, free, fluid, unstoppable? Because when water hits stone, stone yields. Not instantly, but inevitably. When life bends you, don't resist. Learn the curve. Flow with it. That's how rivers are born. There will be days where you'll feel lost, where every effort feels like pushing against a tide that won't relent. But remember, you are not here to fight the tide. You are the tide. Letting go isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's understanding that you are not your attachment. You are not your failure. You are not the story someone else wrote for you. You are water, boundless, patient, and strong in the most silent of ways. They will ask, "Why did you walk away?" And you will say, because I remembered who I was before the world told me what I needed to hold on to. They will call it quitting, but you'll know it's reclaiming. Reclaiming your peace, your pace, your path. In a world that races to prove something, be the one who chooses peace over performance. Let them chase applause. You choose alignment. Let them grip the illusion of control. You flow in the current of trust. You don't need to hold everything. Some things are meant to pass. Some people are meant to leave. Some versions of you are meant to die, so that something deeper can rise. That is the cycle of nature. And you, whether you remember or not, are part of it. The bamboo bends in the wind, and that is why it doesn't break. The mountain may be mighty, but it is the water that defines its shape. Stop trying to be unbreakable. Be bendable, flexible, fierce not in force, but in grace. You don't need to answer every attack. You don't need to defend every choice. The water doesn't argue with the rock. It just flows and lets time speak on its behalf. So breathe, and remember, every drop of water is part of an ocean, and you are not alone. You are not stuck. You are not weak. You are water, and you are already moving. You are already moving, even when it feels like you're still, even when nothing around you seems to change. The current is deep beneath the surface, invisible to the eye, but it is there, quietly shifting you toward a new becoming. And yet, we panic when stillness arrives. We fidget in the face of silence, because the world told us that growth must look like movement, like noise, like visible achievement. But the deepest growth is invisible, like roots spreading beneath the earth before the flower is ready to bloom. Lao Tzu called this Wu Wei action through non-action. Not laziness, not passivity, but powerful alignment. The art of doing without forcing, of flowing without straining. The ability to trust the nature of things and stop fighting the river we were born to ride. But we've been raised on resistance, told that anything worth having must be taken, that if you don't struggle for it, it doesn't matter. So we wrestle with life. We tighten our grip on outcomes, on timelines, on people we're terrified to lose. And slowly, quietly, we suffocate under the weight of our own control. But water teaches otherwise. It doesn't resist gravity, cooperates with it. It doesn't fight the mountain. It embraces its edges, finds the cracks, and writes its story through presence, not pressure. What would change in your life if you stopped forcing? If you trusted that what's meant for you doesn't need to be chased, it needs to be allowed? Imagine waking up tomorrow without fear of falling behind, without the need to prove yourself, without the desperation to make something happen. Imagine moving through the world with calm certainty, not because you have all the answers, but because you trust the process more than your plans. That's what it means to live like water, to stop measuring your value by your velocity, to stop confusing anxiety with ambition, to stop being loyal to chaos because it feels familiar. Peace is not a pause in the storm. Peace is becoming the eye of it. And to get there, you must release the illusion that control equals security. Because the more you try to grip the water, the more it slips through your fingers. But when you open your hands, when you let it move, it carries you. It shows you where to go. And sometimes where you're going isn't where you planned. Sometimes life will remove what you thought you couldn't live without. Not to punish you, but to purify you. To strip away the layers that were never really you. To soften the stone that life calcified around your heart. Let the grief come. Let the uncertainty rise. Let yourself feel what you've been avoiding. Because that pain, that discomfort, that silence you've been drowning out with noise and distractions, it's not your enemy. It's your teacher. It's the water eroding the stone of your old self, breaking down the walls you thought would protect you, but instead kept you trapped. There is no transformation without erosion. There is no becoming without unraveling. And if you keep resisting that, you'll keep reliving the same cycles, the same heartbreaks, the same failures, all dressed in different names and faces. Lao Tzu knew this. That's why he spoke not in commandments, but in paradoxes. Because truth, real truth, isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with certainty. Sometimes it whispers beneath your breakdown. Sometimes it glows in the silence after you finally let go. That's the power of surrender. Not giving up, giving in. Not losing, liberating. Not falling, floating. Have you ever watched a leaf fall into a river? It doesn't fight the current. It doesn't question where it's going. It just moves. It trusts. You were once like that. As a child, before they told you who to be. You moved without fear. You trusted without proof. You laughed without reason. That child still lives in you. And maybe it's time to come home to that self. The one that knows peace is not in performance. That real power is not in pushing but in presence. So start here. With one breath. One softening. One decision to stop chasing what keeps running from you. And start becoming what you already are. Because when you do, you begin to radiate something rare. Not the sharpness of pride, but the glow of peace. Not the sound of success, but the silence of strength. You walk into rooms and people feel it. Not because you're louder, but because you're lighter, freer, aligned. And in that alignment, the world shifts. Opportunities find you. People respect you. Not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. You became water. You stopped being afraid of change because you realized you are change. You stopped fearing endings because you knew they were the birthplace of beginnings. And you started flowing, not away from yourself, but toward the life that's been waiting for you all along. Not the life you built on fear, but the life built on truth. So if you're tired, rest. If you're lost, listen. If you're breaking, let yourself break. Because just like water, you are meant to flow. You are meant to heal. You are meant to return, not to the past, but to the essence beneath it all. That quiet, unstoppable presence that doesn't shout, but always speaks. And when you live from that place, nothing can shake you. Not the critics, not the chaos, not the failures or the storms. Because like water, you will always find a way. Around, through, beneath, beyond. You will not be broken. You will simply bend. And in that bending, you will carve your name into the stone of this life. Not as the one who forced it all to happen, but as the one who led it. And when you let it, life begins to unfold in ways you could never plan. Because life was never a blueprint. It was always a current. A river with bends you didn't see coming. With depths you didn't think you could survive. With beauty you couldn't have imagined if you'd clung to the shore. But most people don't live in the river. They live clinging to rocks. White-knuckled. Afraid to move, afraid to feel, afraid to lose what was never meant to stay. They confuse stillness with safety. They confuse the familiar with the right path. And so they stay, stuck, stiff, scared, wondering why nothing changes. But you are not here to cling. You are here to surrender. You are here to dissolve the illusion of control, to soften into strength, to let go of the map and become the compass, to walk not with certainty, but with clarity. Because clarity doesn't mean knowing every step. It means knowing who you are while you take them. And that knowing, that deep, unshakable center, is forged not through victory, but through vulnerability. Through the moment you let the old you dissolve. Through the nights when your heart broke and you stayed soft. Through the days when the world asked you to harden, and you chose not to. That is strength. Not the clenched jaw, not the raised voice, but the open hand, the quiet breath, the unfazed soul that has nothing to prove and nothing to protect, because it has become one with the flow, the Tao, the way. And what does the way require? Not perfection, but presence. Not armor, but awareness. Not more effort, but more essence. And so you stop measuring your life in milestones. You start feeling it in moments. You start letting people go without resentment. You start walking away without needing closure. You start hearing no as redirection, not rejection. You start honoring the invisible, because you know that's where real power lives. The roots, the silence, the waiting, and suddenly you are no longer at war with time. You are no longer racing the world. You are no longer shrinking yourself to fit into stories that were never written for you. Because you've remembered what the water never forgot. that the most powerful force in the universe is not fire, not thunder, not might. It is the soft flow that wears down mountains, the gentle drip that shapes stone, the patient presence that changes everything without needing to force anything. And now the world feels you differently, not because you demand it, but because you've become undeniable. Your peace is louder than their noise. Your clarity cuts through their chaos. Your being silences their trying. And in your softness, they feel your strength. Because you are no longer living from the wound. You are living from the well. The still, deep, eternal center that no one can take from you, because you finally stopped giving it away. You finally stopped fighting the river. You became it. And now nothing can hold you. Not the past. Not the fear. Not the stories that told you you were too much or not enough. Because you know now that water needs no permission to flow, no approval to shine, no validation to be vital. It simply is. And so are you, whole, unshaken, alive. So breathe and listen, not to the noise out there, but to the whisper in here.